Welcome to Blended Chaos. I first want to start by saying thank you all so much for the feedback, um, the compliments, all the love and support in this. It has been a wild ride the first couple of weeks for sure. We're getting a lot of when's the next one coming out? I'm so excited to hear the stories. We're loving that support. So thank you all for coming alongside us. Those of you that are following along, enjoying the ride, thank you, thank you, thank you. Today, we are going to start with the episode we're going to call All About the Bride. Think about it. You start planning your wedding, probably about the bride. You start blending a family, probably a big focus at that wedding, the family and the bride. Any girl spends her whole life dreaming of her wedding day. And most of the time, weddings revolve around the bride. But go back to when we received these messages, a little background history. We received the messages in 2019. However, they started just 1 week following our wedding in 2016. So today what we're going to talk about is kind of where these messages started, the first few comments, discussions, how this was even coming up in topics. What were these people talking about? What were they articulating to each other? How much of this was true? How much of this wasn't true? Today we are going to dive into the beginning. And their beginning complaint was that I was having a wedding, a big wedding, they called it, and that I was making it all about me, the bride. Who'd have thought, right? So we're going to kind of go back and where it really starts in the conversation. First of all, I want to show you our wedding book. We loved our wedding. We are very proud of our wedding. We worked very hard to plan our wedding. We were very intentional about our wedding. A couple of big things about our wedding. There's a Bible scripture that we wanted to be the link to our wedding date. So the date we got married actually had biblical purpose to us. So January 16th, it was based on that verse. We had planned our wedding at a place in the town that I'd grown up in. I had known the family that had this wedding venue for years and years, had went through many, many trials and tribulations with their family. So was really excited to get to host my wedding there. And one of the things I kind of said, well, first of all, I didn't want a big wedding in the first place. I wanted to elope to an island and be in the ocean. My husband wanted a wedding. He wanted it with our family and our friends. Our children that we were blending together wanted a wedding. So that was something we really wanted to make sure that we honored, was the kids got to be part of the wedding. A lot of our friends had young children. Those kids wanted to be part of the wedding. Everybody wanted a job. So that was really our primary focus. And then I decided if we were going to have a January 16th wedding, I wanted it to look snowy, outdoor, winter wonderland kind of wedding. So you'll kind of see why those key points matter inside of this dialogue that they had created themselves. So we're going to give names to the characters in this storyline. I think that'll just make it a little easier for people to follow along. We are going to protect their identity by giving character names. Obviously, many of you may know the story, but we are going to ask just for their identity and their protection that we're going to use character names. So my ex-husband's new wife, her name is Karen. Then my husband's ex-wife, her name is Monica. And then the father of my daughter, we're going to call him Mark. So in this 3-strand message series that we've been talking about through this podcast, we have Karen, Monica, and Mark. So these are the 3 participants when we kind of talk about that triangle all the time of who is who. So when we start talking about our wedding, how this starts is Mark starts the story by saying, pictures are up from the wedding. Kids were out in that cold taking pics. The kids have red cheeks and don't look too comfortable in some of them, LOL. Monica replies with, I am blocked, LOL. Karen then says, that white furry thing is hideous, and all the praying is blah. Please remember I just mentioned how we wanted a wedding that was revolving around the spiritual side of our marriage and going into that unity. Karen continues with saying, Monica, they are on the website for the photographer. And our daughter jacket during the reception is proof it wasn't as warm as she said. Glad they could spend all this money on something that isn't going to last very long. Daddy's money down the toilet. Couple of reasons this starts out just very frustrating. Obviously, these are the first 7 messages they ever send each other in this thread that I was given. My dad did not pay for our wedding. They would not know anything about our wedding budget or how much our wedding cost. Ultimately, that white furry thing she's calling hideous, like, it's my wedding. I would think that I could pick whatever I wanted. Nobody asked her what I should or shouldn't wear. And then talking about the jackets. Our daughter was actually wearing like a little overcoat, kind of halvesy jacket over a dress. So again, this isn't warm wear, cold gear, nothing crazy either direction. They then go in to talk about my husband at the end of the night at our reception wears this long pinstripe jacket to kind of be funny. They go into talking about that. Again, what relevance that had to them was still beyond me. And then Karen goes on to say, and her dad doesn't give her away. Monica says, why? Karen says, because he knows it's not going to last. He is still supporting her and her lifestyle and will always, because he can't stop her. Mark then says, I wondered about the giving away also. I thought the family pic was a joke also. Who does that? If it's a family now, why is there no wedding pictures of the small child, which was his daughter, and my daughter and my husband in the arms? So they just go on and kind of make up this little like battle about who should have given me away, who shouldn't have given me away. Again, what they care about doesn't really make sense. This is when we go into the first official message of Karen saying about her. Again, when we think about the dialogue, the story, the event, the plan, what wedding doesn't usually have a primary focus on the bride? I will give a little backstory. It was at a barn. The barn doors swung open. I walked down the aisle in between our family and our friends to the front where they had an altar set up for where my husband and our attendants were. We each had one of our best friends stand with us, and then just our children were up there with us. So it was not like we had 5, 6, 7, 8 friends, no big wedding party, nothing like that. Mark then comes back and says, yep, on the kids, and yes, all about her. That's kind of why we started deciding that this is where we would start from these messages, is kind of a spoofy joke about all about the bride, because again, that made sense to anybody who's planning a wedding. Karen goes in and says that my 2 daughters don't want to be in his arms. She actually misspells the child's name that is her stepdaughter at that time. And then they go into, and who is the boy walking down the aisle? So again, you kind of see this like making their own dialogue, making their own story. Mark says, the kid that Nikki watches, that her only friend that showed up was that family. No other friends were there. Oh, Karen says, oh, really? Is the mom, and names another person? Mark says, no, that's not the mom. I believe the mom is so-and-so, and names yet another person. Mark also says the bridesmaid is the mom of this kid walking down the aisle. Now, the funniest thing, again, about all of this is there's a child. He's about 5 years old at this point. He is my ring bearer. Again, my childhood best friend since I was 10 is my maid of honor in my wedding. Her son is the ring bearer. All the kids in our lives wanted jobs. All of them got to participate. You'll see kind of through the wedding pictures. We had kids doing guest books, serving food. We had kids serving cake. We just kind of let the kids have those joys because they wanted these positions. But the fact that these 3 people, one of which had made a life with me for a couple of years, one of which is married to my ex-husband, who would know who these people are just consistently making up the names of multiple people that so-and-so's not there, and they are, or it's so-and-so's kid, they don't know who the child belongs to. It just goes to show this perpetuated, chaotic mess of they make up a story, and then in making up that story, how out of control the situation gets. They then go into another topic, which we'll go back to that another day. So some of these get a little bit choppy. but they're kind of talking about this other topic in between here. At this point, they're talking about what the kids are wearing. Oh, at least we know why the kids are sick. Apparently, they had decided with each other that the kids were sick because they were at our wedding. Again, the wedding was held indoors. The reception was held indoors. The only thing outdoors were a few pictures. Mark says, at least we now know why the kids are sick the week after the death of Sean. I mean, the wedding. So, like, again, they just want to make this fun, hateful stab. Karen says, evidence now. We all knew why they were sick, LOL. Mark then says, yes. And my stepson, he names him and says, the sun looks cold in a few of the pictures, but also very happy at times. I don't see a real smile from Nikki or Sean, though. Just Nikki crying. Again, I think we would see that there are emotional times in weddings. I don't know that everything that they see or don't see on a website makes a difference. But Karen then goes in to say, kids are going to be happy on the fun days. Nikki's smile is a fake one, just as the entire look on her face. It's all about how it makes her look. There's no way she can be happy with how her life is. I mean, just on and on. Karma is not on her side, and it's just brewing with her. Like, they're just so chaotic. Mark then says, it surprises me how many people are there. Not very many. And how her friends are not there, but just the bridesmaid. Again, you will see in the pictures, the barn is completely full. The tables are completely full. Full aisles as we're walking down. Karen says it should be an eye-opener for her family. And her brother wasn't there. And never seen her beloved stepsister. So that no, kind of some typos there. We don't really know what she's meaning. If she was there either. Again, they just don't know. I do have step-siblings. I have a younger stepsister that originated out of Arkansas and an older stepsister that at this time lived in Seattle. So again, nothing where my stepsisters were here or even local at that time. Mark says, no, she wasn't in the family pictures. So no one besides her set of parents? Nope, just her one aunt, actually. Point again for the lack of their knowledge, just the fight, the bicker. All of my aunts and uncles were at my wedding. Every aunt and uncle on my side of the family was at my wedding. All of my dad's siblings, my mom's sibling, everybody that I have as an aunt and uncle was at my wedding. I even had second cousins at my wedding and great aunts at my wedding. Grandparents were all at my wedding. This just makes no sense that, again, they're kind of making this story up to just create this problem. Mark then says, I don't see Misty, Misty's daughter. And then they all start going into, well, probably because it was short notice. No one could have planned for it. And who is Misty? I'll be honest, to this day, I have no clue who they're talking about. Mark then goes in and says, Misty Williams. I don't know anybody by that name. And so they just start making up even people's names, relationship to me, identities. There's just all of this like, oh, this person I think is there. No real name, fake people. It's crazy. Karen then says, oh, I'm not a fan of hers either. And of course, no kids are there. It's too freaking cold for them to be out in it. That's what good parents do to their kids. They then kind of jump back to their other topic that they're talking about. And so, again, it gets a little convoluted. But the next section where they jump kind of into this whole wedding is Monica shows back up. Now, I will say that's one thing you're going to kind of find through these stories is Monica gets involved at certain times, and then she gets really quiet and kind of disappears. Monica's also the party that released these to us. So even in the beginning, Monica's very hit and miss. Unless it's a story Monica wants to talk about, she just kind of jumps back in and out throughout years of this dialogue. Monica says, just looked at my phone. I missed the conversation, LOL. Um, and so she then talks about, now that she's back in it, she's catching up. So Monica now is back into the conversation. She says, I just looked through all the wedding pictures. There aren't enough of Nikki, just saying, LOL. This is just shocking to me. The first two spend the entire day. This is still the same day. They're at about 1 p.m. now. So if that puts into context, they started this thread at 7:30 in the morning. We're now at 1 p.m. Monica's come back into the thread. And now we need more Nikki, which really for the next 3 years, you're going to find is a normal theme of this, is we just want more Nikki. Talk about Nikki more, think about Nikki more, obsess over Nikki more Nikki, more Nikki, more Nikki. Monica then says, the only pictures that Sean looks really happy is when it's just him and the sun. Mark says, oh yes, he always looks happy when it's him and the sun. Mark then says, I didn't notice any pictures of Nikki. So at 7:30 this morning, we talk about how it's all about her. All we see is her. She is a selfish, horrible, hideous white cloak wearing person. And now we don't see any pictures of Nikki. We've totally flipped our dialogue to there's no pictures of Nikki. There needs to be more of her. Monica then says, I don't want to sound snobby, but I think she wanted to erase birthday memories of Sean and I. That's why she picked that date. It's as close as she could get to my actual birthday. So my husband's ex-wife has now convinced herself that I picked my wedding day to erase her birthday, which years later becomes its own funny topic, but I'll come back to that in a minute, to erase her birthday so that I could plan a wedding just as close to her birthday as possible to erase her, because that's what anybody does when they're planning a wedding on a Saturday with family from out of town around schedules and child custody. For sure, that's what people do. Karen then says, it's her day, all about her, nothing will change. So apparently she wasn't happy that they decided it wasn't, there was not enough of me. Now we're back to that it's all about me. Mark then says, birthday memories, when is his birthday? Karen says, January, his birthday month too. There's always a reason for everything she does. I mean, at this point, you could probably just call me Taylor Swift, because back in 2016, when I was rocking this out, I was so strategic that everything I did probably had an Easter egg. Just wait. Monica says, did she have a big wedding the first time? And no, it's my birthday. He used to make a big deal about my birthday. Well, he was your husband. I mean, no offense, ladies. Side note, off of this, if your husband doesn't make a big deal about your birthday, you should reevaluate your expectations of your husband. It is one day a year that is assigned to you, that God gave you when you were born. It should be about you. So good job that when he was her husband, he made a big deal about her birthday, because I married an incredible husband. So when he was married to her, he was doing a very good job then too. Mark then says, he makes a big deal about birthdays, like buys you nice things, ? Oh, yes. Monica says, oh, yes. And we always went to a hotel for the night. Mark says, well, he bought Nikki something for $300 and no idea on the hotel. How would my ex of years at this point know what my husband had bought me for my birthday or how much it cost, even if he had found out from the child, who at this point is only 18 months old? She's not even 2 years old in this storyline. Our child that we share is not even 2 in this story at this time frame. How would he know what my husband bought me and how much it cost? Again, are they following people around? Are they inquiring about that? Are they going out in public saying oh, please tell me what he bought? I just don't even know. I'm going to be honest. This is the first I ever knew what maybe that gift costs. I do know what gift it is. I don't know that amounts right, but I just find it insane that my ex from years before this thinks he knows what my husband bought 6 months before this for my birthday. It's just absurd to me. And then Monica says, so Mark says, he bought her this item and no idea on the hotel. And Monica says, well, she doesn't use it. She doesn't use what? The birthday present that her husband bought her? Again, did we just make that up? How do you know if I use it? These people that think they're ever in my home and in my life and in the cycle. Like, how would you know if I use anything, let alone this $300 gift that my husband got me 6 months before these messages are exchanged? Then we fast forward to only 5 minutes later. So you see kind of how fast they all talk in their nonsense. Karen then says, yes, she had a big church wedding. She and her ex-husband had picked their honeymoon out in Branson in a railroad car suite. She threw a fit and demanded to go somewhere else. I would have annulled the wedding then. Monica says, what a bitch. Karen, 2 thumbs up. For sure a bitch. We agree. Monica then says, at this time, she was with a partner, him and I will not be having a wedding. Vegas, it is. Mark says, best way to do it. And Karen says, that's where we got married. I already had my 1 wedding, and he obviously had 2 weddings, and I'm not a big, it's all about me, she puts in quotes, kind of person. So we went there, and that was our honeymoon as well, except for having her text us while we were there. This is where this entire thing becomes upsetting to me, frustrating. These are people who started dialogue with, it's all about her. At some point in there say there's not enough about her. Talk about how selfish and what a piece of shit I am. But then go on to tell stories about how they either will or did have weddings that did not honor their kids' request. When Karen and my ex-husband got married, the children were not aware or even part of that. They went to Vegas and came home married. The children were not included, asked what they felt, none of that. So how we have a full-blown dialogue of, she's a piece of shit, it's all about her, blah, 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 and yet out the very next side of their mouth, they can discuss, I'd go to Vegas and I'd make it all about me and it would only be what I want to do and I've already had this. And how do you justify a horrible perspective, trash talking and putting me down while ignoring your kids' desire to be part of you blending your own family, excluding them from that? And then I'm the problem when I made sure that all of our kids were not only included, the biggest parts of our wedding, our kids got to participate in. We did a family unity sand, singing, dancing, food choices, cake choices, all of that. How am I the all about me piece of shit selfish person? All while your very next line is Vegas for me. Disrespecting what your kids would want or what they would need to ensure the unity of your family. And it's probably where the success of our family's unity looks much better than the lack of success of any of your family's unities. So I know I mentioned a minute ago how they were talking about birthdays, right? Like birthdays are such a big deal and he does this and my husband does a great job for birthdays. The reason I find that so funny that they talk about that is because remember, this dialogue we're speaking of is in 2016. We come together in 2019 and then I proceed for the next 3 or 4 birthdays to be the one that hosts Monica's birthday. Up into including her 50th birthday party, I threw a surprise dinner, which included one of her children from her first marriage. She has 6 children from that marriage and 1 with us. One of her children and his spouse from that marriage and one of her friends. Otherwise, everybody else there was part of our connection to her. So I threw her 50th birthday. I paid for and sent her to dinner on dates with just her son for birthday gifts for her to make sure he was learning how to throw birthdays and spoil people. Birthdays are a really big deal in our house, not just because my husband loves them and celebrates them well. I had always loved them and celebrated them well. So when my husband and I married, of course, that's something we're both very passionate about, is making sure that birthdays are celebrated. Again, it's your one day a year for you, about you. And if you share that with somebody else, I'm sorry. Obviously, there's always different scenarios in life, But for the most part, all of us have our birthday and it gets to be ours. This year, I've been blessed enough to have my niece born on my birthday. So now I share my birthday with somebody for the first time ever. That took 40 years. So I do want to just mention, like, the funny thing about this birthday issue is in 2016, they're complaining about how I'm working hard to erase her memory and birthday memories. And yet then years later, I go on to be the one that not only hosts them, provide them, celebrate her, all the things. Up into including one year, I was on a trip and had ensured that someone else managed to plan, pick up, and pay for dinner to spoil and serve her for her birthday because nobody else in her life was doing it if it wasn't me. So definitely you're going to hear stories throughout the years where some of the sensitivity to these messages obviously is the fact that then when they got to know me, or at least when Monica got to know me, she really learned that none of that was true over all the years of their fake dialogue about me. So just kind of bringing that back around full circle. So as we kind of wrap up this episode, a couple of key points I want to make sure of. We are actually in the year 2025 now. So again, keep in mind these messages are early 2016. My husband and I in the next 2 weeks will be celebrating our 9th wedding anniversary. So good thing they were never right 9 years ago that this wasn't going to make it very long, and that everybody knew that it wasn't going to last, because here we are going strong at our 9th wedding anniversary. And then also a few things for you guys to be looking forward in upcoming episodes. Some of the next few episodes we're going to talk about is what happens when the parties all work together to illegally file tax returns, claiming children that were not supposed to be filed on their taxes, and what happens when officially we get into our first court involvement after my husband and I's wedding. The court is going to start becoming very relevant. Fights with the courts, decisions by judges, mediators, case managers, all of that's going to become a big part of our story. Long dialogues where case managers or mediators are fully involved in both cases regarding my daughters. That did not ever happen with my husband's son. Actually, years later, we ended up with full primary custody of him, undisputed. She signed over custody of him to us. So you're not going to hear a lot about court stuff involving their side of the case, but you are going to hear where the battle for sure ramps up in this blended chaos nightmare.